Hello everyone, I am back with a Techtonica video. Today I want to talk about belts and some of the tricks on how to make them do what you want them to. So one of the things that makes Techtonica a little bit different from some of the other games is how it handles belt splits. So if you have a belt line like this, you build another belt going off it, you'll get this little splitter box, and you can add a fourth belt, and you can change the direction of the belt. You just need to erase the individual belt and then just redraw it, if you will. But there are some limits. So you see how we have 3 coming in. Yes, you can change those, but we'll just keep it like this for this example. There's this third belt, right? The one that's coming out, or the fourth, I suppose. If you delete this one, your splitter is gone. Okay. If you if you put it back, you'll get the blocks back. If you delete it, it'll be gone. If you put a belt in that is facing the opposite way that it was, like this, you will not get that splitter back. Okay, because the splitter relies on at least one belt going through all the way. So if we needed to change the direction, you'd have to change the direction of an entire section. Okay. And yeah, it does not matter what the mark of the belt is. Anyways. Yeah, so that's the first thing. You can't have a 4-way split that's going different directions. You have to have one belt that goes through all the way. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Honestly, you're not going to have any time when you need to have a splitter that's set up that way, because then you wouldn't have a source. But there's a little bit of more trickiness to these belts, because that's what you need to do is you need to split off and go the same direction. And if you try to do that, it doesn't work, right? So yeah, so if I click, now I have this. I want to change the directions. It actually changes the direction of the belt without forming that little side like this. So that just doesn't work. The only way to do it is to do a longer split. Do something like that. Yeah. Yeah, so generally I think you're going to want to avoid doing these side-by-side belts because they really lack flexibility, is the main problem. If you have 2 side-by-side belts like this, that means that if you want to grab or insert things to the far belt from this side, you have to use the long inserters. And the long inserters cannot use this, they don't have stacking right now. So when you start switching to the stacking inserters, you're really going to start noticing the difference. These guys, the long ones, are going to lag behind quite a bit. So that's one thing. But then the other thing is that you can't drag a belt off to this side from the far side. I can't, I can't grab. I can go this way, but I can't go that way because that happens. And also there's the other belt in the way. What I prefer to do is have a gap of at least one belt in between, because that allows you to jump over the other belt if you need to. It allows you to also go in if you do, right? Okay, both ways. So that generally is you want to keep it spread out. There are some places where it's not going to matter, like when you've already built an assembly and you need to lay a transitory belt, you know, because you are taking some things from one end of the factory to the very other end of the factory or something like that. And then at that point, where you know kind of where things are going, and you know you're not going to need to split off anything off of that belt or whatever. Yeah, sure, put them next to each other. It's not an issue. But then don't forget that you can stack belts, and stacking belts is pretty easy in Techtonica. You just go like that, and it'll automatically go on top. Um, so yeah, you can stack belts. Stacking belts is very easy, like this. You can still jump over other belts, even if they're both stacked. Do keep in mind if you're going to be doing a jump like this, you're not going to also be able to have a third belt, you know, stacked on top of that. Or at least if you do, it's going to jump over, right? It's going to do its own jump. So I mean, I suppose you could have like a set where it's continuously going over itself like that. But that's a little bit messy, isn't it? Anyways, the other thing worth mentioning is how you can go between levels. Say that you want to get a belt that goes from here, the bottom to the top, or even if you were trying to bring something down from the top, if you try to build up like this, it doesn't work. The game doesn't have a way of making that work at this point. There's two ways of doing this. You can either build a floor for it, like this. Okay. And then you can build your belt up or down. Or if you don't want to have this sort of supporting structure, or, you know, I mean, you can always delete it afterwards, but if you don't want to even bother with that, just go to the top and start your belt up here. Make sure it's facing the direction that you want it to. And then just go downstairs and build it, because you can always build the belts that go down. The game will automatically do that for you. But you can't build them up. It's just a limitation of how the interface works right now. That may change in the future. But as of the recording of this video, this is how you go between levels. If you remember how we had the side-by-side belts, you remember that you can't split so that you can have two side-by-side belts like that, right? It doesn't work like that. But what you can do is, if you're at the end of the belt, you can make it curve up like that. And then you can make it continue. And now you can have your two side-by-side belts that are actually merging into a single belt like this. But you can't do it where you have two continuous belts where where there's some merges in between. That's not going to work. Okay. For that, you have to do it like that. And that will work. So the last thing I wanted to cover is something that if you're a veteran of these games, you probably have already realized. So for everyone else, uh, this three-way split that like I have here, it represents a hard limit to the splits in the game, and something you have to keep in mind when you are building your assembly or your factory, because this is going to affect how you divide things evenly, so that you don't overload one side or the other side of an assembly line, for example. Because take, for example, this example where we're going into three, but it turns out that you actually need to go and split something four ways. If you need to split an input like this four ways, then you can't use this three-way split, because if you were to try to add another split somewhere, you can't do it without affecting the way that this is. Yeah, so if you want to do a four-way split, if you go from here, for example, well, now you've gone where this is 1, 2, 3, and then the number 3 is going to get split into 3.5, 3.5, let's say. So it's actually, you're always going to have less items on this line than you are on these two, because these two are always going to get 1 and 2, and then this third one is going to get split in half. Is that it means that you're not going to be able to split things into things other than multiples of 2 or 3. And the reason for that is you can split here into 2, and then you can split the 2 into 2, and so on. Or you can go 3 ways, right? You can go 3 into 3, 3 into 3, and 3 into 3. And then, each one of these can itself go into 3 or 2. But you can't, if you split one of these, but you don't split this one, then the numbers are going to be uneven. You can have more. You're going to have more on the single side than you are on the double side, the side that's split, right? So yeah, multiples of 2 or 3 is what you're limited to as far as number of splits. It's just something to keep in mind if you are building very long assembly lines, and you're trying to keep everything neat and tidy. Well, if you're still with me, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel grow. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.